Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bariatric Friday. My name is Kemal Erkan. I'm the chairman of American Surgery Center. Our goal is to bring you the perfect blend of the knowledge and expertise in these events. And that's why you have me and you have Dr. Irgau. Dr. Irgau is our president for Christiana Institute of Advanced Surgery, as well as he's my counterpart for the clinical side at the Surgery Center, at American Surgery Center. Dr. Irgau, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kamal. Glad to be here again on another session of Bariatric Friday.
Well, this is more fun than 2 p.m. events. 2 p.m. events is it's important, but it may be a little bit depressing. But the 3 p.m. Bariatric Friday is more fun, and I also do believe that helping others directly, making changes, making impact in their lives. That's really rewarding, and that's why we are here every Friday with Bariatric Friday. Today, we are going to discuss one of our main issues, not just for people who fight morbid obesity, but anyone who's going through the holiday season, is how are we going to actually navigate holidays without gaining weight? Now, for Dr. Irgau, for you and I, it's the one level challenge versus for our patients who are already in the bariatric process. This is even more crucial because we want them to lose weight before the surgery. Now, many holiday seasons, most people, they add 10 to 15 pounds on a regular basis anyway. So we want to kind of guide our patients to see how they can go through this without actually having any weight gain, and hopefully they can maintain their weight.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it is important for us to raise these issues at times in which our patients could be facing challenges in terms of their journey after surgery. People who are not familiar with bariatric surgery may question this type of sessions by saying, well, if they've had bariatric surgery, why do you worry, right? And that comes from a misunderstanding about bariatric surgery. As we always say, bariatric surgery is actually a tool, right? And having the patient change their attitudes, change their lifestyle, change their relationship with food, and understanding how important it is to eat in a healthy manner is actually critical to the success of bariatric surgery in the long term. That is why bariatric surgery is very different from other surgeries that we do. I may see a patient who needs gallbladder surgery, Kamal, to evaluate them before the surgery. I see them during the surgery, and then I may see them once after the surgery to see how they are recovering. But after that, the relationship ends essentially. Not so when it comes to bariatric surgery. Bariatric surgery involves a very long preparation period to set the stage for the patient to be successful by teaching them about the many facets about bariatric surgery, but also following them up in the long term to make sure they have the appropriate support at times in which they may face challenges. And holidays could be one of them. Holidays are a wonderful time for all of us, a time we really look forward to, but also it's a time where food becomes a central part of many of the activities that we do around holidays. Which means our patients could definitely struggle, and it is important for us to prepare them with ways for them to really successfully navigate these times. So what are the things that we want them to remember? Well, first of all, we want them to go back to their foundation, right? To the basic things that we teach them all the time, including things like portion control, for instance, right? We tell them, you have to eat until you feel full. After that, you stop, right? You don't go on to levels in which you feel discomfort, right? Yes, they do have a small stomach. Yes, their portions are going to be way smaller than they were before surgery or compared to people who never had surgery. but it doesn't mean that they have to push it to extents where they are uncomfortable, right? Because if you end up with that behavior where you're uncomfortable time in and time again, Kamal, then it means that they may be exceeding the portions that they need, the calories that they need for them to stay at that healthy weight. So portion control is still important. So they're going to a party. They see two sets of plates. There is a big plate and a small plate. Which one should they choose? The small plate. And they should be doing the same thing at home as well. That sets really a stage for them not to exceed what they need to eat at that time, right?
So last week we have our holiday party,
Yes.
Friday.
Was a wonderful party, by the way. I don't know if you had
Party.
feedback yourself, but I did. And it was great.
The credit goes to Anne and the other team who helped her during that time. But one of the things for us is, and I do this, and you know, I do this on a regular basis. Those types of events, I normally don't eat. But we end up maybe drinking maybe a little bit more than we normally do. But then like, even if I had a busy schedule last week during the day, I still need to think ahead of time and then see how I'm going to prepare myself for, like, mentally for that event. That was part of it was a late lunch. So I had lunch. Normally what I would have done is, if I didn't have late lunch, I would probably have egg whites, 3 of them, usually does it for me. But that last week, in fact, Sean was ordering the lunch, and then he's like, "Well, we have the event coming up." I said, "Well, that's why I want to actually have lunch, because I don't want to eat, but also I don't want to get drunk, right?" So this preparation is for all of us.
Yes.
So the plan ahead is, I think, is really important, so that you are not kind of going there with empty stomach, and then you are going to be out of your element, and you'll start maybe looking for food that you don't need. And I think this plan ahead is really important, and we do that on a regular basis when we have these events, as much as.
Absolutely. But unlike you, Kamal, the vast majority of people actually don't even think about planning that way. In fact, the vast majority of people, particularly people obviously who haven't had surgery and who are not particularly thinking about weight as a problem, they may be looking forward to having a totally open mind and then raiding whatever they can find at that time, right? Because eating is part of the enjoyment, clearly, that we know, right? But when you've had bariatric surgery, what we're saying is you cannot afford to have that mindset. You really have to sit down and think ahead, and, as you correctly said, plan so that you don't fail yourself. And that is the key word that we're talking about.
Unfortunately, I'm not always that good. So today I was driving down here, and I didn't have breakfast. As you know, I don't eat until like mid-afternoon. My goal was, after 3 p.m. event, either have late lunch or one of my Robards chocolate pudding. So, but I got a message from one of our directors. I won't mention her name, but I think her name is Beste. So she said, "Oh, there's this new Turkish restaurant that we are going to get food from." And, you know, I was just minding my own business, just coming down to the office. I'm like, you know what, why not? So I ordered something that I shouldn't be ordering. Was it delicious? Yes, but I know that I shouldn't have eaten that.
But you were set up, right?
I was sabotaged. So you know, these things, like, we don't make those good decisions, unfortunately, all the time. But this, you know, this is if I was a patient who were going through that process, most likely Besta wouldn't call me. I know she wouldn't. But what if she did? It would be difficult to say no, because I'm already kind of fighting with my own desire to not eat. So, like, now I'm going to be more like tempted to eat more. So it's rough. I mean, it's tough to actually deal with those ups and downs. But in terms of you were mentioning the portion control, I think looking for a smaller plate. Let's go back to that and see when there's an open buffet party. there's no portion. The entire buffet is your portion. What's the best food maybe to pick for our patients during that time?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that would be the next step. The issue about choosing a smaller plate, it is to psychologically, but also physically limit yourself. Because yes, there is a lot of food on that buffet, but if you choose a smaller, like a dessert type of plate, as opposed to a normal portion plate, then there is going to be much less room for you. And therefore, by default, you end up taking less food to your table, right? So choosing a smaller plate is important about that. But then you talk about choice, right? Choice of the foods that you see there. So what you want to do in your mind again is choose foods that are not calorie dense, right? Because food come in different calorie contents, right? So if you are going to take classically a vegetable Kemal, you will have more volume and less calories, right? If you take a piece of chocolate, you will have a small volume, but a lot of calories in it. So you want to be choosing something that has less calories, so less calorie dense foods, which means you are more likely to feel full early, and the total amount of calories you will have ingested will be very small, which is why, again, as a bariatric patient, you cannot go mindlessly. You have to be mindful. And part of the reason we want you to be planning ahead is because that mindfulness should start early, knowing that you may be setting yourself to go into a trap when you go to that party if you don't plan ahead. Now, we are not saying you should not enjoy yourself, far from it. But what we're saying is make an effort to essentially isolate the food from the enjoyment side, right? There are many other areas of enjoyment within that socializing that don't have to be totally entrenched with the food. Yes, the food is important, but it should not be central. And that is also the mindset that we have been trying to teach our patients since bariatric surgery. Because as somebody who is vulnerable to weight gain, there are certain things that you just cannot afford. Period, right? So, I mean, if you know, when we talk about affording something, Kamal, if my budget is X, right? I cannot spend more than X. I just cannot afford it. It's just not there. Similarly, if I have a biology that is so strong in driving me to weight gain, right? And it's biology that even bariatric surgery cannot eliminate. Come on, that tendency is there, right? Then you cannot afford certain things. Now, bariatric surgery provides you a wonderful tool, right, to allow you really to, to control yourself better, right? But even in that setting, you still have to think, right? Now, having said that, remember, not every day is a holiday, so most days you will be doing fine, and maybe you will have an issue. Maybe you will overeat at the holiday. It's not the end of the world, but holiday after holiday after holiday, if you really don't think, then you could be setting up yourself to, to potential weight gain or difficulty to lose the amount of weight that you wanted to lose. So that mindfulness goes with the planning as well. Planning, yes, have smaller portions. Yes, choose foods that are less calorie dense. But then there are other strategies. For instance, hydrating yourself, right? Hydrating yourself, there you are, you're picking the water, right? That is important, not only because you need to stay well hydrated to be healthy, but also because very often the sensation of thirst can be mistaken for hunger, Kamal. And then as soon as one drinks water, maybe that drive to eat something will go away. And then, of course, there is only a limited amount of space within one's stomach. So if you drink enough water, then you may not need to add more food as well. So these are small, basic, foundational attitudes that you have to put them in place, particularly in situations like this where you could be set up to fail.
Sure. I think the water is kind of the key, and if the reason I always show this, other than trying to get sponsorship from this bottle company, is also like I add lemon, ginger, and cucumber, and it makes it a little bit more fun to drink. Because sometimes with the plain water, people do like a little bit taste. So
Absolutely.
they can always try. And the way that, I set this up, it's easy. It's like you can also refill this throughout the day.
And I see fresh fruit in there, which are going to be full of micronutrients and vitamins as well. So flavor plus also some nutrients you're adding there that a good thing. So staying away from things like juices, from sodas and things like that, and concentrating on water. And if you want to flavor it with fresh fruits like you're doing, Kamal, so much the better, essentially.
So, another challenge, I guess, is how to avoid sugary or high-fat foods. Now, speaking of this, I kind of like giving examples from my own life. So this morning, I see a package outside of the door, and during this holiday times, like there are things that I order, but also there are things that some friends are sending. And I see this and I don't see who sent it. So I have to kind of really carefully look for, and it's coming from my bank. So what did they send me is 2 boxes of chocolate. So they don't know my BMI and they don't know if I'm happy or not with my weight. But they're like, I'd rather just them put the money in my account instead of spending on
That's
chocolate,
right.
right? But no, they actually bought chocolate. So my immediate reaction is like, how am I gonna get rid of this? Because if it's there in front of me, I'm gonna eat, right? So avoiding sugary and high fat foods, especially during the holidays, it's a challenge. Now, right up around, there's a door here. If you go to Susan's office, you'll see a lot of boxes of cookies and other things came as a holiday gift. So that's part of the culture that we live in. But then part of the culture we live in with 30% obesity or morbid obesity rate. So then every time we do something, we try to do something good, it's also maybe harming someone. But how are we going to avoid that? What's the best advice that you can give us?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can give it to somebody like Susan who can afford it, right? She's one of the few lucky people in the world who really do not struggle at all with weight. But the vast majority of us really do.
She would struggle, Dr. She does run on a regular basis. So
Oh,
she's a
really?
runner.
That's good. I mean, she keeps herself in great shape. That's wonderful. So essentially, when talking about sugary foods, though, there is another layer, obviously, to the issue when it comes to bariatric surgery. Patients who have had a procedure like gastric bypass come out, they can have the dumping syndrome, actually, which can be a pretty violent reaction if they eat high refined sugar food. So that's another thing they have to be careful because they can, can become dizzy, they can throw up, they can have terrible abdominal pain and ruin their party completely. So particularly patients who have gastric bypass, they have to be very careful about, refined sugars. But in general, as you said, again, the sweets and the cakes are all essentially the calorie-dense foods that we want them to avoid. Now, does it mean that they cannot have a little taste? Of course, we are human. We want a little bit of that pleasure, but the key is going to be that mindfulness that allows you to know that all you're doing is having a taste, right? You don't want the one bite to call it for the second bite and then to follow for the third, and then you end up eating the whole thing, which is really defeats the whole purpose. So those are the foods that you have to be very mindful in terms of the choices that you make, right? The other thing that we talk about, again, this is foundational also, Kamal, and it comes to mindfulness as well, is to eat slowly, chew your food thoroughly. That's what we talk about. So if a person is not doing that, enough, first of all, it could be harmful to them because they have a small stomach or they have a small opening between the stomach and the intestine if they have had gastric bypass. And if they're distracted and they're swallowing something that hasn't been chewed properly, that could cause some kind of blockage that could, again, ruin their evening. So chewing thoroughly and be mindful about that. That's as important, right? Now, besides these foundational things, there are certain things that are, again, very minor adjustments that they can make that can help them as well, right? For instance, a good one would be in a situation where you have, a party where there is a buffet and it's not necessarily a sit-down atmosphere. What you want to do is you want to socialize and aggregate in areas away from the buffet area, because it is very easy if you're close by and you're engaged in a conversation and you're enjoying yourself. People are munching, and then the hand will go back and forth in the buffet, and then before you know it, you really have overeaten as well. So you are protecting yourself by making these small but very important adjustments that will make you enjoy that holiday party, but at the same time, you're not going to walk away guilty because you've overeaten or because you've forgotten the type of precautions you were supposed to take. Again, why are we raising this issue at this time, Kemal? Because we want to raise that awareness. So if there are patients who are planning to go to a holiday party this weekend, next week, I'm glad that they're listening to this, because they will say, you know what, I should be planning, right? And they could even go to extremes of taking their own food to that place, and then, utilizing something that they're comfortable eating, something that they've eaten without any problem, and they can stay away completely from food that was prepared by others that definitely did not have in mind bariatric patients.
That can be part of their plan ahead. So
Yes, absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
a party that they can actually bring their own. They should definitely do that. And many of those parties, we are not just talking about company Christmas parties, but we are talking about um, friends and families getting together, which usually happens in the home environment. So getting your own food probably is it's a good solution. It's not an insult to the person who's throwing the party, so they understand, or they should understand. The other
Yeah, or
thing,
it may be a situation where people are allowed to bring food, in which case it's a perfect opportunity to bring something that you yourself like, essentially, or is a good thing for you to consume.
absolutely, and I think seeking for support also is important. So our nutritionists, they're available. Now, it doesn't have to be a nutritionist. It can be the surgeon follow-up visit. It can be the primary care visit, or it can be someone from the bariatric support group that we have on Facebook, that you can have a bariatric buddy who is actually there with you. And finally, you can actually watch one of these episodes to see how we actually guide you throughout that process, because it's all about the ultimate goal is for you to have a successful outcome after the surgery. So the other thing, Dr. Irgau, in terms of being able to listen to our body and really understand what it says, how important that is, or do most people know to listen the signals that's coming from their own body?
So they don't. They don't. And that's one of our main problems in our society, Kamal, because, we don't have any concern about, affording food or anything like that. The availability of food far exceeds our need for food in any setting in our society, Kamal, right? So we really do not eat to survive, actually, if you think about it, right? The vast majority of time we eat because we like to eat, So that mindfulness about, I am feeling full, therefore I should stop. We don't have that, right? And of course, if you haven't had bariatric surgery, the margin between feeling full and feeling uncomfortable is so wide that you could have had enough food for your needs and yet add 2, 3 more portions before you feel uncomfortable, right? After bariatric surgery, that margin is a lot narrower, right? Which means that once you start feeling full, it may take 2 to 3 extra bites before you feel uncomfortable, right? Because the stomach is so small, right? So the cue to stopping eating should not be discomfort. The cue to stopping eating would be satisfaction, right? And understanding that takes a lot of practice and takes absolutely mindfulness, Kamal, which means that when you're eating, your focus should be on the eating itself, right? And listen to that satisfaction which says, hunger is gone. Hunger drove me to eat. Now hunger is gone. I stop eating no matter how much food there is on the plate. Now, this is easier said than done, particularly having grown up in a society where, again, we eat and we've grown up to eat far, far more food than we need, right? And that mindset, that culture is still there, despite the fact that one has had changes in their anatomy after bariatric surgery. So really changing that mindset is really the real struggle. And really is one of the essential parts of success after bariatric surgery is absolutely this, Kamal, is to really try to listen to your body and know that you've had enough food.
One final thing that I would like to add, Dr. Irgau, get one of these. Get a puppy.
Yes.
So, and I mean it. Why? Is because we need to exercise a little bit more than our normal, especially during these times. Maybe walk more, be more active. And just from the personal experience, if I did not have Joshua, I probably wouldn't be able to walk as much as I do today. But thanks to him, we are averaging about 8,500 steps on a daily basis.
Wonderful.
This was before him, it was around like 3,500. So now here's what happens. There are times, like, especially this week, we had some really cold days.
Yep.
In the morning, the last thing that I want to do on my own is go out there and walk, but it's like 7 Fahrenheit. So when you have a puppy, then you don't have a choice. So you have to walk him. So therefore you are walking. And getting the puppy is a lot easier these days if you go to one of our Brandywine Valley SPCAs, one of the no-kill shelters. Then you'll have a much easier way, and it's going to be a lot less expensive because there are a lot of good incentives for adoptions. But I think having a support other than your regular medical people, puppies are the best. So you should definitely get one. And if anyone is interested and they don't know what to do with it, they can message me directly, and then I'll put them in touch with Brandywine Valley SPCA. So, Dr. Irgau, thank you so much for all the guidance that you have given us about the navigating holidays, especially for our patients who are going through the bariatric surgery. Our goal is a successful outcome for every patient who's going through the program. And the holidays are a great time to spend with our families and friends. And it's a really good way to recharge. But we also want to make sure that the other side of the holidays of, a lot of food and drinks available, and try to protect you from what may be not the best for you. So I think watching these and then being in touch with your medical team, care coordinators are going to be the most important. Hopefully this is beneficial for those who are watching, and we'll be back not next week, but the following week. And we'll have a lot of new episodes with maybe some new topics, but otherwise we are going to repeat what we already have in different cycles. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.